Hello and welcome to this third episode of our series on VAT recovery and travel expenses. Today we are going to talk mostly about data and about artificial intelligence. And again, I'm together with Damien. Hi, Damien. Welcome back. So tell us, Damien, what are the main strategies you observe in your client base when it comes to VAT recovery? What are the typical strategies corporations are using?
Yeah, so it's important before talking about AI data, it's good to see indeed the current situation in companies. So right now we see three different approaches. The first approach is very straightforward. It looks strange, but some companies follow it. They just ignore VAT and they do not recover VAT on travel expenses because they think that it can be maybe too time consuming or they are not really conscient about the amounts engaged and the potential cash that this could represent. So that's the first strategy. Of course, this represents a loss of cash savings for the company. Then we have a bit the opposite. We have companies who recover it. So they reclaim or deduct VAT on travel expenses, but only with very basic rules because they don't want to check manually every single invoices. So they recover it, but they take a bit the risk of being not compliant somehow in some areas. But we see it. And then we have, of course, a third category of companies nowadays, thanks to technology and different improvement in processes and expertise as well. They balance both. So they recover VAT. At the same time, they want to focus on compliance. But of course, they want to do it in an efficient way because you don't want to check individually every single receipt or expenses on travel. The idea there is to become more compliant, to maximize the VAT amount recovered while keeping the cost of the process efficient. And this is typically where we are working on our day-to-day. You can imagine on that for you.
Yes, okay. And what are the typical data issues that your customers are facing when it comes to claiming VAT? What are the obstacles to getting
when you say the question, claiming VAT, you think it's the last mile of the step to claim the VAT, but what we see is that very often the issue comes first much earlier, already when the vendor issue an invoice. First thing that we see is that sometimes the invoices are not compliant because they don't follow some certain rules. Also, some vendors issue invoices without thinking about the deductibility rules of VAT, and therefore we are missing some important information inside an invoice, even if it will be compliant, but it renders the invoice processing complicated. An example we see as well is the complexity in travel sometimes of the rules. So typical example is I would take France, so we see that. VAT.
French are always complex.
I know, but not only the French but we have, when we see sometimes the categorization of an invoice, when you say a hotel invoice, for example, for us it sounds easy, simple category, but for VAT perspective, this is not enough. We need to know which exact elements were included in the invoice, because sometimes, for example, the accommodation will not be refundable, but if you have a dinner in a hotel, even if it's a hotel invoice, it's important to distinguish and to itemize the invoice, so to split accommodation, breakfast, dinner, parking, etc., because the VAT rules will be impacted. So you have a problem, as I said before, in the document itself, but you have also a problem on how the data is extracted and treated for VAT recovery. And this trigger work challenges. Of course, nowadays we have solutions thanks to AI, because the episode is talking about AI, but AI, expertise, technology, and also better integration between the data during the flow.
Why is it still so difficult to obtain this data for VAT recovery?
Well, we mentioned it in the first episode. There are mainly three angles to reply to this question. The first one is that the process is fragmented. So we have different touch points and different stakeholders. So even if we talk about VAT, it's a tax matter. In the travel area, it's impacted by other stakeholders. So it's a question of a teamwork between travel, procurement, tax, finance, IT, because nowadays we have a tool for everything. So this is the first thing, and sometimes some companies struggle a bit to harmonize that or to make these different stakeholders work together on that topic. The second point is that, as I mentioned just before, we use a lot of tools, of systems, and VAT is rarely integrated in the purpose of each tool. So at certain elements, at certain stages, the VAT is somehow forgotten or not considered enough, and the result in the end is the VAT opportunity that is missed. And finally, the third element where companies have a clear obstacle when we talk about international travel and global transactions is that travel expenses have rules that are in constant evolution. So in different countries, you know that you have different VAT rates, VAT deduction rights. They depend on different categories. It's different in a country than another. You have reciprocity without entering into techniques, but you have reciprocity between different countries where you are allowed or not allowed to recover VAT in a certain country. So this can be complex, and you need to monitor it constantly. So those three things make it sometimes still challenging for companies.
And so I guess, I mean, the topic of this episode is data and AI. So how can they help with these challenges?
Maybe data is the most important, more important than AI, because when you have clean data and efficiently connected, you don't really need always AI. Of course, bringing VAT earlier in the process helps to do predictions. I mean, predictions means to anticipate a bit the financial impact of certain activities and decisions. And this is where AI is also helping nowadays more and more to think about potential scenarios for the future. And this is a growing area in finance, of course, and it will for sure impact as well VAT.
Now, a very important topic nowadays, in Europe at least, is basically the move to e-invoicing and e-reporting. Yeah. I'm assuming it has quite an impact on VAT as well. Can you explain how it impacts travel and expense generally?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, this has an impact on all transactions, on sales, procurement, and of course, travel expenses are not exempt of this reform. So you have, maybe I will quickly explain the concept there. You have, in all European countries and even more countries, you have a move to what is called e-invoice and e-reporting, which means that invoices are becoming electronic invoices. And so it's better exchange of data that is structured in a certain way. And we have also e-reporting. E-reporting, basically, to simplify, is to provide a certain set of data, to be able to provide a certain set of data to tax authorities of the country, and in the future in somehow a real time. And of course, this affects travel expenses as well. What we see and we know now is that a portion of the travel expenses which will not be yet affected by the e-invoicing, which are all the small transactions. So I take the example of France. Today, when you have a transaction that is below 150 euro, you can collect a simplified invoice, so a receipt, precision, not a credit card receipt. This is not okay for VAT recovery, but you can collect a simplified invoice, the receipt of a restaurant, for example, below 150 euro, and you can keep your current process. You don't need, it's not mandatory yet to issue an e-invoice on that. However, when the threshold of a transaction is higher than 150 euro in France, for example, and it's other amounts in other countries, then the invoice must become e-invoice. What does it mean? It means that when you are in this restaurant, in this hotel, etc., if you want to be able to recover VAT, you need to collect an e-invoice. So you need to say to the restaurant to issue an e-invoice, an electronic invoice, to your company. And basically, instead of just taking a picture of the invoice needs to flow through the accounting system of the company. So what I see clearly is that today we are having designed two flows for travel and e-invoicing. The flow of small receipt and small transaction out of pocket. So basically the process compared to today is not really changing. However, e-reporting requirements will ask companies also on small transactions to still provide a lot of information on this transaction. So you still need to use a lot AI and to extract data and to connect the dots to get this e-reporting done. This is what will come in the future. And on the other flow of electronic invoices, as I said, this is new, and it will follow the same process than normal invoices, where data will flow through the accounting system of the company. And to assess the VAT on this transaction and distinguish the different rules, you need to evaluate and to validate these invoices.
So still quite some complexity on this process.
It's indeed it's complex. Yeah, sometimes it looks more complex than it is in some areas, and but I really believe that the invoicing is an opportunity as well to get more compliant invoices, because it will become the norm in the end. So that's an opportunity. And honestly speaking, when you have data flowing between two systems, and if it's harmonized somehow, the data quality will increase. So it means in the end more VAT recovery potentials for companies. Okay, but it's important to remind that there are really two flows: small receipt out of pockets, where the process remains the same more or less, and we have the e-invoicing for higher amounts that is becoming mandatory.
So thank you, Damien. Very clear, very interesting. See some real opportunities and of improvement thanks to e-invoicing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure
coming here. And thank you everyone for watching us. This ends our series on VAT recovery. Thank you for watching, and see you soon. Bye-bye.